It's 9 p.m. You're tired. You open Amazon just to browse, and 40 minutes later, you've bought 3 things you didn't need. That's not a willpower problem. You know what the advice always is? Cut your latte, track every penny, make a budget, and actually stick to it. You've heard all of it. None of it stuck. Because the people building serious wealth aren't more disciplined than you. They've just stopped relying on discipline entirely. I started at 22 with $12,000 in student debt and crossed $100,000 in net worth by 29. And the habits that got me there were so boring, I was almost embarrassed. Here's exactly how they work. Here's the mechanism behind all 7. Decision fatigue. Every time you consciously choose between saving and spending, your future self loses that fight. The people building serious money have just removed the decision entirely, automated the boring stuff so thoroughly that wealth builds itself. Let's get into it. I used to get paid and watch the money disappear. Not on anything dramatic, groceries, subscriptions, a dinner here, something online there. 2 weeks later, $40 left until the next paycheck. Every month. Jake, a friend of mine, still does this. He makes $95,000 a year and has $8,000 saved. I was earning less and had 10 times that. Not because I out-earned him, because of one automated transfer. The math is the reason I set it up and kept it running, even in months when money was tight. I automated a transfer to savings and investments the day my paycheck hits. Before I spend $1 on anything, I never see it. I adapted without feeling it. The psychology is simple. Money in your checking account feels spendable. Your brain doesn't crave what it can't see. $500 a month from age 25 at a 7% return becomes over $1.3 million by retirement. That's not sacrifice. That's your future self getting paid first. Out of everything on this list, this one saved me the most. Not because it's hard, because of what it does to your brain over time. And it required 0 willpower once I understood what was actually happening. Research on consumer behavior shows that browsing, even with 0 intent to buy, activates reward pathways similar to actually purchasing. You get a dopamine hit just from looking. Scroll Amazon for 20 minutes when you're bored. Walk Target for fun. You're not weak. You're literally training your brain that the solution to empty time is consumption. 66 days of repetition and that behavior runs on autopilot. The fix isn't willpower, it's substitution. Find anything that's slightly challenging, slightly rewarding. The gym, a hobby, a walk, anything that gives you the engagement you're looking for without wiring yourself to your credit card. The next 2 habits cost me real money before I figured them out. One contradicts advice you've heard 100 times. The other sounds like the most obvious thing in the world until you see what it actually costs you. The average person makes hundreds of food-related decisions every single day. Every one burns mental energy. And when decision fatigue hits, which it does every day, you default to whatever's easiest, which is almost always the most expensive option. I eat the same 6 meals on rotation every week. It sounds miserable, but here's what happened. I stopped making food decisions entirely. Same grocery list, same prep, same autopilot. My grocery bill dropped from around $420 a month to under $280. The takeout orders stopped because I wasn't standing in the kitchen at 7 p.m. with no plan and a delivery app 3 taps away. The goal is to remove hundreds of daily decisions so your mental energy goes somewhere that actually matters. That was the obvious one. Here's the one that actually surprised me. I bought a Costco membership the year I started tracking my finances. Felt smart. Ended up throwing out more food than I ever had. It goes against everything you've been told, but for most things, bulk buying is more expensive when you're honest about what actually happens. When you buy in bulk, your brain imagines a version of yourself who will finish the spinach before it turns to slime, who will somehow consume 48 granola bars before the sell-by date. That person does not exist. You're not saving per unit, you're paying for waste. Buy what you'll actually use. You can always go back to the store. The scarcity of buying less makes you value what you have more carefully. That discipline compounds in ways bulk discounts don't. Quick question. What's the last thing you bought in bulk that you actually finished? Drop it in the comments. I want to know if I'm wrong on this one. Because the next 3 habits are where most people quietly leak the most money. And the last one is the habit every personal finance influencer gets completely backward. I know this sounds terrible, but here's what a boring routine actually does for your money. When you know what you're doing with your day, you're not scrolling social media watching other people spend. You're not making reactive decisions. The expensive dinner because you didn't plan, the impulse buy because you were bored, the spontaneous weekend that wrecked your budget. Structure removes the decisions that lead to decision fatigue. And studies consistently show that people with structured routines make fewer impulsive purchases. Not because they resist more, because the decision never comes up. The expensive version of this is what I call reactive living. Jake is a reactive spender. His weekends are always spontaneous. Every bored Tuesday is a new purchase. He makes more than me and has a fraction of what I've saved. The money doesn't disappear in one dramatic moment. It leaks out in 100 small decisions he never intended to make. That's what no baseline costs. The good news, the next habit cost almost nothing. Most people hear budgeting and think restriction, guilt, spreadsheets. That's not what this is. And if that stopped you before, I get it. I started tracking my spending not to cut back, not to judge myself, just to see. First month, no pressure, no rules. What I found wasn't guilt, it was data. I was spending over $200 a month on things I couldn't name 2 days later. $2,400 a year I couldn't account for. Not restaurants, not experiences, just stuff that evaporated. That's not a character flaw. That's what happens without visibility. Research consistently shows that tracking alone reduces spending, without any pressure to cut back. Not because people are trying, because awareness changes behavior. When you see the number, something shifts. Do I actually want to do that again? 3 minutes before bed. Log what you spent. That's the whole habit. Last one, standard advice is cut the latte, save $2,000 a year, and technically that math is correct, but it's psychologically terrible if you do it wrong. Research on consumer behavior shows that eliminating small daily pleasures without replacing them triggers deprivation backlash. You feel punished and compensate by overspending somewhere else. You save $6 on coffee and spend $50 on something else because you feel like you deserve a treat. The reframe. You don't eliminate the pleasure, you relocate it. Make your home coffee exceptional. Good beans, a ritual you actually enjoy, something intentional. And save the coffee shop for when it actually counts. Meeting a friend, working somewhere different, a real occasion. Intentional spending is more satisfying than habitual spending. That's not deprivation, that's just knowing the difference. You're not broken, you're not undisciplined, you're just making too many decisions, and your future self keeps losing the ones that matter. I went from $12,000 in debt to $100,000 in net worth in 7 years using exactly these. None of them are exciting, all of them are automatic. Start with habit 1. The setup takes 10 minutes and works while you sleep. That's the Ben Factor.